3 stories below, a large crowd had gathered on the hospital steps. A band, photographers, television trucks, cameramen, and autograph hunters. He'd waited a long time for this day. But now, another change in him. He put the emotion into words. "I don't feel like a hero. Funny, but I don't." "Hero!" Hendricks laughed, and with his powerful lungs, it sounded like a bull snorting. "You think a successful criminal is a hero? You stupid!" He laughed again and waved a hand at the crowd below them. "You think those people are down there because they admire what you did? They're down there waiting for you because they're curious, because they're glad the CPA caught you, and because they're glad you're an ex. You're an ex-criminal now, and because of your treatment, you'll never be able to commit another crime as long as you live. And that's the kind of guy they admire. So they want to see you, shake your hand, and get your autograph." Joe didn't understand Hendricks completely, but the part he did understand he didn't believe. A crowd was waiting for him. He could see the people with his own eyes. When he left the hospital, they'd cheer and shout and ask for his autograph. If he wasn't a hero, what was he? It took an hour to get through the crowd. Cameras clicked all around him. 100 kids asked for his autograph. Everyone talked at once and cheered, smiled, laughed, patted him on the back, and cheered some more. Only one thing confused him during all the excitement. The white-haired old lady with tears in her eyes said, "Thank heaven it was only a watch. Thank heaven you didn't kill someone. God bless you, son." And then the old lady had handed him a box of fudge and left him in total confusion. What she said didn't make sense. If he'd killed someone rather than stealing a watch, he would be even more of a hero, and the crowd would have cheered even louder. He knew he had stood outside the CPA hospitals many times, and the crowds always cheered louder when the ex-murderer came out. In Hendricks's robot-chauffeured car, he ate the fudge and consoled himself with the thought, "People are funny. Who can understand them?" Feeling happy for one of the few times in his life, he turned toward Hendricks and said, "Thanks for what you did. It turned out great. I'll be able to get a good job now." "That's why I met you at the hospital," Hendricks said. "I want to explain some things. I've known you for a long time, and I know you're spectacularly dumb. You can't figure out some things for yourself, and I don't want you walking around the rest of your life thinking I did you a favor." Joe frowned. Few men had ever done him a favor, and he'd rarely thanked anyone for anything. And now, after thanking the man who'd done him the biggest favor of all, the man was denying it. "You robbed Gralewski's apartment," Hendricks said. "Gralewski is a CPA employee, and he doesn't live in the apartment you robbed. The CPA pays the rent for that one, and he lives in another. We have a lot of places like that. You see, it gives us a way to get rid of saps like you before they do real damage. We use it as a last resort when a DCT first class won't take the free psycho treatment or—" "Well, it's still a favor." Hendricks's face hardened. "Favor? You wouldn't know a favor if you stumbled over one. I did it because it's standard procedure for your type of case. Anyone can, free of charge, have treatment by the best psychologists. Any DCT can stop being a DCT by simply asking for the treatment and taking it. But you wouldn't do that. You wanted to commit a crime, get caught, and be a hero, an ex." The car passed one of the CPA playgrounds. Boys and girls of all ages were laughing, squealing with joy as they played games designed by CPA psychologists to relieve tension. And, despite the treatment, Joe shuddered when he saw the psychologists standing to one side, quietly watching the children. The whole world was filled with CPA employees and volunteer workers. Everywhere you went, it was there, quietly watching you and analyzing you. And if you showed criminal tendencies, it watched you even more closely and analyzed you even more deeply until it took you apart and put you back together again the way it wanted you to be. "Being an ex, you get the kind of job you always wanted," Hendricks continued. "You'll get a good-paying job, but you'll work for it. You'll work 8 hours a day, work harder than you've ever worked before in your life, because every time you start to loaf, a voice in your head is going to say, 'Work, work.' Exes always get good jobs because employers know they're good workers. But during these next few days, you'll discover what being an ex is like. You see, Joe, the treatment can't possibly take all the criminal tendencies out of a man. So the treatment does the next best thing. You'll find a set of laws written in your mind. You might want to break one now and then, but you won't be able. I'll give you an illustration." Joe's face reddened as Hendricks proceeded to call him a series of names. He wanted to smash the fat, grinning face, but the muscles in his arm froze before it moved it an inch. And worse than that, a brief pain ripped through his skull, a pain so intense that, had it lasted a second longer, he would have screamed in agony. And above the pain, A voice whispered in his head, "Unlawful to strike someone except in self-defense." He opened his mouth to tell Hendricks exactly what he thought of him, the CPA, the whole world, but the words stayed in his throat. The pain returned, and the mental voice whispered, "Unlawful to curse." He had never heard how the treatment prevented an ex from committing a crime. Now that he knew, it didn't seem fair. He decided to tell the whole story to the newspapers as soon as he could, and as soon as that decision formed in his mind, his body froze. The pain returned, and the voice, "Unlawful to divulge CPA procedure." "See what I mean?" Hendricks asked. "A century ago you would have been locked in a prison and taxpayers' money would have supported you until the day you died. With the CPA system you return to society, a useful citizen, unable to commit the smallest crime. And you've got a big hand in your dirty little mind that's going to slap you every time you get the wrong kind of thought. I'll keep slapping you until you learn. It might take weeks, months, or years, but you'll learn sooner or later to not even think about doing anything wrong." He lit a cigarette and blew a smoke ring at the car's plush ceiling. "It's a great system, isn't it, Joe? A true democracy. Even a jerk like you is free to do what he wants, as long as it's legal." "I think it's a lousy, filthy system." Joe's head was still tingling with pain, and he felt suffocated. The CPA was everywhere, only now it was also inside his head, telling him he couldn't do this, couldn't do that. All his life, it had been telling him he couldn't do things he wanted to do, and now— Hendricks laughed. "You'll change your opinion. We live in a clean, wonderful world, Joe. A world of happy, healthy people. Except for freaks like yourself. Criminals are— Let me out!" Joe grabbed at the door and was on the sidewalk, slamming the door behind him before the car stopped completely. He stared at the car as it pulled away from the curb and glided into the stream of traffic again. He realized he was a prisoner inside his own body, made a prisoner by a world that hated him back. He wanted to spit his contempt, but the increasingly familiar pain and voice prevented him. It was unlawful to spit on a sidewalk. End of story 7.